Hey, what's going on, everyone? You are now listening to Resilience in Action with Erin Brown. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Resilience in Action with Erin Brown. We are here with speaker, coach, author, Mills Rodgers. Mr. Rodgers, go ahead and tell us about yourself.
A little bit about myself. I am a speaker. I am an author. I do some coaching. I'm located here in Austin, Texas. You see it right outside the window right there. No, that's just a virtual background. Actually, it's not that's not my view, but that view is not too far from me. Uh, and so I speak on leadership, uh, personal development, also a little bit about special education. I'm a former educator. I taught 15 years in public schools, and so that's a interest of mine. And so that's a little bit about myself.
Gotcha. So you are a speaker. How long have you been speaking for?
I've been speaking since February 2017. Been doing it full time since July of 2019.
Okay. So you made the jump. So you were speaking as well as teaching between 17 and 19, and then 19 is when you made the jump to fully commit.
Yeah, I took a leap of faith. Yes, I did.
Great. So how's that leap been for you thus far?
Uh, I mean, it's been good. I mean, I've been able to sustain even through the pandemic. We all had to kind of pivot to doing like virtual engagements and everything, but thank God I've been able to maintain. And not saying it's not a grind. You definitely gotta wake up in the morning and your feet hit the ground, figuratively, as far as just getting to work and everything. But it's been good, and the pandemic is kind of it's not as intense as it was before, and so I've had an opportunity to do some in-person engagements. I've done more in person over the past year or so compared to virtual, so that's been a blessing too.
Good. So getting in person, um, can you tell us a little bit of a difference that you find between in person and virtual events?
Yeah, I liken it to driving at night. Virtual is like driving at night because, yeah, you can, if you're driving at night, you can get to your destination, but you're not going to, the sensory aspect of it is not the same. You're not going to be able to see the landmarks, things that are cool along the way, but you'll get to where you need to go. Well, that's how I see virtual, because virtual, again, it's not, when you're in person, you can see body language a lot of times, and, the energy is a lot different. You can feel people's energy, they can feel your energy. Whereas when you're doing virtual, it's just not to the same degree. And it's some things you have to work harder at. Like you have to work harder at your energy as a speaker for virtual. But it's a process, and I've gotten very comfortable with it. And it's where I've had to adjust my mentality about doing virtual. And now it's like, okay, it's not too bad because even if, for example, the turnout isn't great for virtual, you can just really just make some quick adjustments and make it more intimate and more of a Q&A and that sort of thing. And so, I've really enjoyed that in my latest virtual engagements, my more recent virtual engagements.
Gotcha. So, um, your virtual engagement, I've had like a little bit behind the scenes with your setup. Like you have the lights and the everything, don't you?
Yeah, I got a softbox right in front of me right now, and yeah, this is a green screen, and of course, I found a picture of my city to put on the green screen, and I got a stand, and so yeah, it's something that anyone can do, and I mean, I didn't spend a lot of money on this at all, probably about $60 at the most, between the softbox, the green screen, the stand, and a little microphone that I got right there. So yeah, it's not You know, it's pretty economical.
And in times like we're in right now, economical is the way.
Yes. Yeah.
Is absolutely the way. Okay, let's talk about you're an author, and I want to jump right in because you just released a book yesterday, right? Yeah. So
Yes.
speaking
Yes.
your speaking business into existence. Tell us about that. How'd you come up with that idea, that concept?
Well, you know, I started a group, you know, a while back, and just for, you know, advice on the speaking game and everything. And in all honesty, you know, I get a lot of people DMing me about, hey, you know, I want to pick your brain, I want to get this and that, and you know, if I could just be totally transparent, like initially I'd be like, okay, you know, that's cool. But then after a while, you know, you get it so much and it becomes so time consuming. And
Mhm.
also, you know, you got to value your own time, you know, and I'd even say, hey, I offer coaching, but then, you know, people wouldn't want to move forward with that. So I'm like, you know, maybe I need to come up with a low cost product that people can have access to, and they're picking my brain, but you got to pay $15, $14 for it, which is nothing. You know, that's nothing for what you can get out of it. You know, if you can
Mhm.
get a speaking gig for even on the lower end, you know, come on, that's a worthy investment. Way, you know, it's going to pay for itself many times over. So, you know, it's like, come on. So yeah, that's where I came up with it, and I feel like, you know, it can really help people.
Where can we, I'm gonna go ahead and give you this plug. Where can we find that book?
Well, if you're in my group, you know, right now it's you know, I do have a post in my group, speaking your speaking business into existence, that you can access it. However, if you're not in the group, I got you too. Go to my website, www.successisaprocess.net. And if you scroll down, you'll see on the left, you'll see speaking your speaking business into existence. You just got to click on that link and it'll take you to where you can access a copy of it for $14. So it's an ebook that you'd have instant access to right away.
Perfect. Perfect.
Mhm.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, I want to talk about another book that you've written. You Can Win Being You. Now, this is I want to say from what I've seen, this is your signature
You're right.
book go-to
Yeah.
presentation. Talk about that a little bit. Where did that idea come from?
Well, you know, it's funny because I was doing presentations, and you know, the way I do my presentations, you know, I don't have a big script written out or anything. And, you know, a lot of times I'm just pouring from off the top, you know, from the heart. And I started saying that you can win being you. And I thought about it afterwards after I said it a couple of times, you know, maybe one or two presentations. I'm like, I like that. You know, I really like that. And I'm like, I'm going to revise my book and make that the title. And that's basically how it came up. So yeah, when the world slowed down, when the pandemic started, I'm like, hey, I got a little extra time. Let me revise my book. And so yeah, I
Mhm.
revised it, put that as the title, and you know, yeah, that's like my signature talk. You know, most of the time when I'm speaking, like 90% of the time, that's the presentation I'm giving.
Perfect, perfect. And how is the information you provide? How is that received from the students, from the the people that you're giving your presentation to? How's that received?
Oh, it's well received. I like to you know, I like to make my presentations interactive. I like to make it to where they have some very obvious takeaways. So I've created a number of acronyms within my presentation that they love. You know, that's one thing that I get complimented on, is that, hey, we can walk away and, you know, especially if I'm talking to middle school or high school students, like we can walk away and talk about this in class. You know, this is something we can refer to each day. You know, you got to go hard. You know, I can come
Mhm.
up with an acronym for that. And so, I mean, they love it. And, I've gotten some really great feedback, and, it's just, it's touching to see that it makes a difference. I like to tell stories, personal stories. And so, I feel like my presentations usually, you know, I feel like whoever is in the audience, they're going to find at least one thing that they could truly, truly identify with, if not more than just that one thing.
Mm-hmm. And
Mhm.
that's what sets like the basic speakers who have a script and they're reading from the page or reading from one thing that bores me is when you're reading from the slides, like verbatim, like da 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 da. That's so boring. It's not engaging. But I think it's awesome, your ability to go into the event and just pour into those individuals that you captivate their attention for however long you have it. That's amazing. What what would you say has been your biggest challenge in the speaking realm?
In the speaking realm, it's just getting people to know who you are.
Yeah.
It's funny because I was talking with my fiance this morning, and I'm like, gosh, it's just I feel like if more people knew of what I had to offer, they would definitely be on board. But that's always the catch, is getting people to know who you are, to know that, hey, I got this that could possibly help your students, your employees, and so to me, that is the most challenging thing. Like, that's the grind of it right there, is, selling yourself to people and letting them know that, hey, you're available for them. And
Hmm.
so that's a big challenge right there.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I would
Hmm.
agree that gaining that the celebrity status um in your area is
Hmm.
is like something that there's no better like referral than like word of mouth. Like I had Mills come talk to my class and the amount of information and what he poured into my students, like I cannot speak, better of him and what he was able to do. I feel like that type of conversation between one person and another person is better than anything you can read, anything someone can type is having that word of mouth. So
Hmm.
I absolutely understand that challenge with, you know, letting people know, hey, this is what I do. How can I help you? What is one way that you've tried to tackle that challenge?
Well, you try to stay active on social media. Also, and when I say social media, of course, we're talking Facebook, Instagram, but yeah, also I'm starting to understand. I feel like I'm getting a better understanding of how LinkedIn is really a great platform. Even
Hmm.
though you might not see as much engagement on LinkedIn, you got a lot of people passively looking at you. And so
Hmm.
I've really made a lot more effort to put stuff out there on LinkedIn consistently. And it does seem to help. And just being a creator, creating more things that people could possibly need, creating more presentations, that's something that I've done, and it's definitely helped get like repeat business,
Hmm.
because let's say I do You Can Win Being You, then all right, well, I mean, a school or a program, they don't need to hear that presentation several times a year, but they may be interested in another presentation I offer, like maybe
Hmm.
career readiness. So I do come back and do get ready for them. And so, that's something I would encourage anyone, that's in the speaking game to do, is, have more than one type of presentation, because, it's all about, once you're in there with somebody and you've done a good job, then chances are they'll want to go back to you. And
Hmm.
so, but the thing is, though, again, most people are not going to bring the same speaker in for the same presentation yearly, because their staff ain't going to completely turn over in a year. Their students aren't going to completely turn over in a year. So even if you do a kick-ass job as a speaker, um, 1 year for orientation, or well, no, orientation is a different story because they could bring you in year by year. But
Yeah.
but like if you're going to, that would make sense because it's a different group, But a lot of times, especially at schools, colleges, it's not going to be a completely different group. So they might not need me to come back and do You Can Win Being You for another 2 years until most of those
Mhm.
students that saw it initially are gone.
Yeah.
So that's where having those extra or additional presentations really helps, because then it'd be like, oh, we can bring, Mills Rodgers back to talk about career readiness or time management all in the same year.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
What was, to change gears really quick, what was your transition from in-class teacher, educator, to a speaker and an educator? How was that transition? Was it a big difference for you?
Well, it's funny because I was talking, and I know you've had him on your show, Cedric Edison.
Hmm.
I was talking to him yesterday. We got a chance to finally meet in person because he lives right down the road from us.
No
And
way.
oh yeah, we met in person yesterday. And he is like and it's funny, he said the exact same thing that I tell people all the time. Like, people will be like, well, did you go to training to speak or anything? And he was saying like, well, man, you as a teacher, you did, this is what you did all day, every day, right? And I'm like, exactly. Like, yes, exactly. So
Hmm.
no, I never had any special training or anything. Like, yeah, talking to students that a lot of them weren't really buying into to sitting in a classroom and stuff. That was my training, engaging people, that little people that maybe didn't want to be there all the time. So
Hmm.
um, but to talk more about the transition, I never saw myself as a speaker. I never, that was never even on my radar for most of my life. Okay. So, um, and then some things moved me in that direction. And then when I started, um, it was just like, I believed I could do it. And I saw it as a way out of education, because even though I enjoyed being a teacher, I didn't want to make a career out of it, or spend, well, I did make a career out of it, but I didn't want to spend like till retirement age doing it.
Yeah.
And so it was just a matter of like, okay, just looking for opportunities. And I did some free speaking, and and then I don't know, it just kind of just gradually got better and better, as I got more into it. And I feel like it also made me a better teacher
Hmm.
along the way. And it was also something I could share with students, like, hey, I do this, I've written a book, and they would get very excited about it. They
Yeah.
would. Like, because they saw it as, wow, you're going after your dream. And I don't know, I guess it was neat for them to see a teacher doing something outside of just, being in a classroom.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's cool. You let's see. You taught at Roosevelt High School?
Yes, Roosevelt High
What
School in San Antonio.
what subject did you teach?
I was a special ed inclusion teacher, so
Okay.
I was like special ed support for biology for a few years, which was tough. Well, it's a hard class, and
Say
algebra.
more. Say more. What was tough about it?
Well, just I found DNA. DNA was tough. Understanding, how all that worked together, and the sequencing and all that other stuff. That just was like, man, I was just probably a step ahead of the students. you know,
Gotcha. So the
it was,
physical, like the literal information.
yeah, it was just,
Gotcha. Okay.
yeah. And then I did algebra. And I mean, it's funny because I didn't consider myself a math whiz or anything when I was in school, but I definitely could grasp algebra a lot better, being a teacher. And,
Hmm.
but the kids struggled a lot with that. Um, so yeah, I mean, those are the subjects in high school. Then I did credit recovery. And let me explain what that is, because a lot of people think credit recovery, they think I'm talking about, credit scores and stuff like that. But no, they made me the credit recovery teacher because you have students that have, they're missing credits because they, absences or just didn't pass the class, and they're helping them to graduate, so they got courses to make up. So that was a pretty easy position because, man, my principal put me there because he felt like I was good at relationships with kids, and
Okay.
those kids are basically on their way to dropping out if they don't get these credits. And so you just need, I guess he wanted somebody that would hold the kids to standards, but at the same time could relate to them. And so that was my last position for the last 2 years, and it actually worked out perfect because those kids sit on a computer most of the day, and you're there, more so there to manage them. So if I did have a speaking gig or something like that, it wasn't a big deal if I missed,
Yeah.
you know, because they would just, you get a substitute, but the kids already know they got to come in, do their work on the computer. So pretty simple.
Did you have any students that really, really like excelled as they worked with you?
Yeah, I did. I did. It's, because yeah, a lot of times with students, you just never know um, what type of student, what the student may need. And so once you get with them, sometimes you just build, it's all about relationship building. And
Hmm.
so, and it's funny because sometimes it's like you would think like, you might see this student come in the classroom first day, second day, or whatever, and you're like, okay, yeah, here's another kid, coming in or
Yeah.
whatever, and then you get to know them, they get to know you, and you really begin to relate to each other, and it's really a neat thing. And it's funny how those bonds can really become lifelong ties, because I mean, even now I'll get messages on social media like, hey, Mr. Rogers, and I was even looking at a student today. I'm like, oh, that kid's almost 30. That's one kid, he got two kids, he just had a baby. And I'm like, man, I can't believe that this kid is almost 30 years old. I remember having this kid in middle school several years ago. And so it's just amazing to see how years pass. But yeah, I mean, you just have those kids where y'all naturally just form a relationship. You have a mutual respect for each other, and
Hmm.
yeah, they start to thrive.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Good. Well, that's amazing to hear, because there's so many people who and there's so many students who get left behind.
Hmm.
They don't get the nurturing they need. Um, and unfortunately now sometimes there are students who got themselves in that position.
Oh, yeah.
They know better, they just don't want to do better.
True, yeah, I ran into those, but
Yeah,
it's pretty neat because for me, like I say, I was a teacher, but it just wasn't all about school. It wasn't about
of
could you
course.
make a test grade or whatever. I really liked kids. I liked the students. I respected them as people, and that's the most important thing because yeah, at the end of the day, they're not going to be in school forever.
Hmm.
They're not going to be in school forever. And to me, here's the reality, okay? I would hear teachers talk about, well, that kid, they can't do geometry. What are they going to do in life? Look, they're going to find something to do, okay?
Hmm.
They're going to make a living, all right? Making a living, you don't need to read Romeo and Juliet. You don't need to be able to do the Pythagorean theorem and stuff. These kids will do just fine. The majority of them will do just fine. There's a place for them in society. And so, you got to, see them as a person, and I mean, school, the way it's designed nowadays is just not, it's not for everyone,
Yeah,
honestly. It takes them so far. So,
absolutely, absolutely, I agree. So hey, 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 y'all, listen, it is time for some action. If you are enjoying the content that you've been listening to, I need you to rate and review. That's it. That's all. Make sure you go to wherever you're listening to this podcast and rate and review it for us. We appreciate you so much. Let's get back to some resilience. I just want to, take a second to acknowledge you because being a teacher is hard. I speak at one of the middle schools here every Wednesday. And today I had the opportunity to speak to a different class. And, you can tell that they never really experienced anything like that. You have some teachers who really, the school year is almost over. They're kind of checked out. And so they're not getting the attention, the nurturing, the help that they need to, so they can have a better human experience and be all that they can be. So I just want to say thank you for, what you've been able to do and how you've influenced and inspired the kids that you've come in contact with.
Yeah, I mean it's a challenging job, and you have those that unfortunately they go their own way. I've seen kids go to prison, and I've seen them on the news and everything, and it's
Yeah.
really sad. But there's a lot more that do the right things, and a lot of times we
Mhm.
get so hung up on those ones that make choices to break the law or whatever. But then there's those that, hey, maybe they're not great students, but they're good people. They're decent people, and they're not perfect, but they'll be fine. And so
Mhm.
I think that's just really important, is to understand that these kids are just not a grade or test score,
Yeah.
and life is more than that for them. And they're coming from some challenging situations a lot of times. And so, you
Mm.
got to have a heart for that. At the
Of
same
course.
time, holding them to standards, because I've seen it on each end of the spectrum. Either you get teachers that are super tough, like you don't understand what life's about, and you got to pull yourself up, or then you get the ones like, oh Johnny, I'm sorry that you have to go through this, and yeah, you don't have to do anything, and rub them on the back. No,
Yeah.
we got to have a happy medium. You want to hold them to standards, but at the same time being empathetic to whatever they're going through.
Absolutely. Finding that balance,
Yeah,
between teacher and like a person with a heart who
yeah.
wants to see you succeed, And not saying
Mhm.
that teachers don't have hearts. That's not what I'm saying at all. But finding that balance between, you know, wanting to, y'all know what I'm saying. Like finding that balance. I'll leave it there. Finding that
Yeah.
balance. Um, you're a father, aren't you?
Yes, I have two daughters.
You have two daughters. How
Yeah.
old are they?
My oldest is 24. She's special needs. She has severe autism, and my youngest is 13.
13 and 24. Awesome, awesome. So, um, your youngest, she does she run track?
Yeah,
She
she
played
ran track for the
volleyball
first
too.
time. Yeah, she played volleyball. She ran track for the first time this season. She spent 8 years in gymnastics. So yeah, she's pretty active.
Yeah, yeah. What's it like being a girl dad?
I mean, I love it. I love it. I can't even see myself with boys at this point. It's been fun, and like I said, my oldest was, she's special needs, so that's a whole different dynamic right there. And so it's just, but I'm blessed to have, my youngest, who's giving me the experiences of, being, I guess, a parent to a kid without a disability. And
Hmm.
so it's been a blast. It's been something I've definitely, I don't take lightly, and I want to be there as much as I can for everything.
Yeah, yeah. What's one of the I'm gonna get we're gonna we're going to go. What do you find to be very, very difficult with having a child with special needs and having a child without special needs? Do you find, what's the biggest challenge?
Well, I mean, the youngest one, she's very helpful. So honestly, I really can't say it's a challenge, with
Mm-hmm.
her, because she loves her sister. She helps out. Great kid.
Yeah.
My oldest is more so worrying about her future. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
just because if we're real, the normal cycle of life, um, you know, kids outlive their parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that's probably the major concern, is just making sure that, she's set up in the future for, when, her parents aren't around, or, even her
Mm-hmm.
sister, maybe, I don't want to, I don't want her sister to feel like she's totally responsible, for her older sister's well-being, even though I
Mm-hmm.
know she has a heart for it already. But
Yeah.
that's a big task, So.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. How did you know that your oldest was going to be special needs before she was born?
No, no, no,
No.
not at all. Everything was pretty normal for the most part. The pregnancy, with her mother went normal for the most part, and for the first year and a half, she pretty much hit all her milestones. She was doing fine, and by about the time she got two, me and her mother noticed some regression, and we ended up taking her in, and then they did some more testing, and they diagnosed her with autism at probably about 2.5, between 2.5 and 3. And so no, we had no clue.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that? And if this is too much, please, let me know.
Mhm.
What was that? What was that initial feeling like? How did you feel initially when you got
Good
that news?
question. I mean, as a dad, I mean, I was always excited to be a father. And so for me, it was just, it was a feeling of disappointment, because, it changes the trajectory of being a parent.
Mhm.
Because, when you have a kid that needs extra attention and everything, it's just not going to be the same. And, I wasn't fully educated on autism, at that time. And, but I'd already looked it up, and it's like, well, the first thing you're thinking is like, is it curable? And then, I look it up, like, oh man, it's not curable.
Yeah.
And, it's a spectrum illness. Well, I don't want to say illness, but it's a spectrum disorder.
Mhm.
So, it can vary. Some kids you can barely even tell that they have anything going on the spectrum. And then some, like my daughter, it's pretty much more obvious. And then they even have some that's worse,
Mhm.
as far as their abilities and everything like that. So, um, that was the more the feeling. But it's like, hey, I'm gonna love on her and be dad, and try to make it as fulfilling, as possible. And so, yeah.
Absolutely. What
Mhm.
what is a lesson that you've learned raising your oldest?
A lesson,
I'll
just
say this. What is your most valuable lesson that you've learned?
well, I mean, I think just the fact that it's exposed me to, and it's actually been a gift. It
Mhm.
exposed me to understanding kids with special needs more, and it gave me hands-on experience. And so, I think it's increased my empathy
Mhm.
toward people, because you just never know what's going on. I mean, there's a number of times I went into work, and maybe I'd been up all night with my oldest, because she was having trouble sleeping, or maybe she had a meltdown or something like that. And so, and of course, I wasn't going around just sharing that with everybody. I'm not broadcasting it or anything, but it's just it just makes you think, like, you never know, what people may be dealing with behind the scenes. But it also blessed me because when I started speaking, that's what I spoke on. I spoke on special education because I figured, what, I have insight into being a parent to a kid with special needs. And then I'm also in education. And so I can talk to both sides of it. And I've actually had to educate people, even co-workers that were in special education. I remember one was like, man, he was a teacher, and he's like, these parents, they sit there and let these kids do nothing all day, and they need to be doing this, they need to be doing that. And I'm like, hey, hold up. I'm like, look, just like your car breaks now, or you got a plumbing issue at your house, these people got the same thing going on. They got money issues, but then now they got a kid that they got to worry about that needs way more attention than a kid that's normally developing. And I say, yeah, there's resources out there, but you got to fill a stack of paperwork every time you access a resource, and so it's very time consuming. It could wear on you. And I say, you at least just understand that. It's like life is not stopping for them. Nobody's cutting them any slack because they got a kid with a disability. And it's the most difficult thing is a lot of times in life, we bring about our own troubles. Okay. Whereas when you have a kid with a disability, that's not something you brought on. It's just something that most of the time, majority of the time, it just randomly happens. And so that's what's really, really tough, because a lot of times people could be like, I made a bad choice with a relationship, or I made some bad decisions. You can really narrow it down to something you've done. This right here, having a kid with a disability, there's nothing most of the time that anyone has done to say, oh, this is what you get for that. So, and so I think that that has to be put out there sometimes.
Yeah. Do you have any advice to maybe a parent that's listening to this who just found out, that their child would have special needs, or they're going through the process of figuring out if they do or not? Do you have any advice to give them?
I would just say, definitely stay as involved as you can in their education. Reach out to the community. There's organizations out there that will point you in the right direction as far as resources. There's usually an ARC in almost every town, city that it stands. I don't want to say what the letters stand for, because I may be wrong, or it may sound a little harsh, but I almost feel like it stands for Association of Retarded Citizens, which of course that's an outdated term.
Okay.
But and they may have changed what the letters stand for, but it's called the ARC. And usually they have social workers and everything that can provide resources in the community that you can utilize. Also, just stay very, very involved in your kids' education. Make sure you're going to the IEP meetings, asking questions, calling teachers if you see there's a problem, because teachers are human. And if teachers see that you're giving your kid a lot of attention by following up with the teachers and checking in, then they're going to take better care of your kids in the classroom. And I know that might not sound politically correct or whatever, but that's just the reality of it. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I'm not saying you got to raise hell, but just make sure that you are, make sure that they're aware that, hey, you're keeping tabs on things, that you're following up. It's just simple things like that, can stand out to a teacher. and will
Awesome.
better your kids' education. Mhm.
Thank you for that. Because I have no experience whatsoever. Um, my wife worked with a guy who had it was on the spectrum. And so just, my interactions with him and his family has been, absolutely amazing. He is about a month older than I am, and he is just a joy to be around. And the impact, he's had several DSPs over his lifetime, you know, and my wife working with him, he speaks now, like, he knows like sign languages, like to use the
Mhm.
restroom, or time for lunch, or if you want a cookie. So it's just awesome to see uh the amount of love that those children and those adults that they get, because it's needed. And so often I feel like they get left behind.
Mhm.
They get the short end of the stick, like, more times than not, and it's just horrible to see. And I also wanted to also highlight, you and your expertise and your, hands-on experience, and the information you were able to provide for, our parents who may be facing something like this, maybe in the future, or whatever the case may be. They can always come back to this
Mhm.
and really, really connect and resonate with what you had to say. So that's awesome. What what has been your greatest accomplishment in the past year and a half?
Greatest accomplishment past year and a half. I would say probably getting engaged, honestly,
Congratulations.
yeah, thanks. Yeah, just finding that person. Uh, I mean, it's been a great relationship, having moved on from a previous relationship.
Hmm.
And, you're always kind of like, I don't know. I don't know how it's gonna, I'll be by myself the rest of my life. I'm okay with that. And finding that someone special that, I feel like we just really vibe together. We have a lot of fun. We support each other and just really in each other's corner. I would have to say that's, like if that's an accomplishment, then yeah, I would have to say that is.
That most definitely is. It's so it's so crazy in the world today, and you know, finding that person, finding your person, um, is, wow. We have to go through a lot, you know, and I definitely, finding that person is definitely an accomplishment that, you know, stands to be praised, because it's so difficult nowadays. And to add to it, you have your daughters as well, and I'm sure she pours into them and loves them, you know,
Oh
as
yeah.
much as she possibly can, right? So,
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of madness in the world, and kudos to you for finding your solace.
Definitely
Absolutely.
there. Definitely there.
Yeah. Yeah. We're living in crazy times, Mr. Mills. We're living in crazy times. Um, what is, if you had to give someone who is looking to embark on their speaking journey, if you had one piece of advice to give them, what would it be?
Be persistent. Don't be thin-skinned because you're gonna get rejected a lot. Um, everybody I followed, that has, that's more prominent, they all say that. You know, they all say that you're going to get rejected, and you know, you're going to have to just be persistent, keep grinding. And so I think that would be the main thing. Just try different things, you know. A lot of times people are very hesitant to try something new, and or they're worried about failure. And you really can't be afraid of that. There's nothing that's going to really uh, just stop you in your tracks. You know, there's things, yeah, things will happen, but you just got to kind of shake it off and just keep it moving. Um, like I said, I mean, I can think of one experience when I first started speaking, and it's crazy even to this day that I think when I think about it, like I had an opportunity to speak at a college, and it was yeah, it was a pretty nice ceremony. But I was new to speaking, but I was happy that I got the engagement. And so as I'm walking on stage, I mean, literally, they introduced me like, we got our speaker today, you know, Mills Rodgers. As I'm walking on the stage, I'm stepping on the stage. The guy that introduced me, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, we didn't get your PowerPoint loaded. And I'm like, he's like, is that okay? And I'm like, I don't have a choice, right? I just had to go with the flow, you know, and I don't feel like it was my best talk, especially at that time being a fairly new speaker. And so, you know, but I just shared that to say, you know what, that didn't stop me. Okay. It didn't stop me from getting another gig and another gig. And, you know, now I'm like 50 colleges in, you know, so, you know, that's what I'm saying. You just got to be persistent and, like you say, resilient, you know, got to keep it going. So that would probably be the best word of advice. Be resilient, be persistent, don't give up. You know, nothing is fatal.
Nothing is fatal. I like that. I like that. That might be the title to this one. Nothing is fatal with Mills Rodgers, right? That's awesome.
Say relationships aren't fatal. Bad speaking engagements aren't fatal.
Nothing is fatal except death, right?
Yeah, exactly. You always can bounce back like Lil Sean.
I'm just saying, right? What how can we find you on social media? How can we support you?
You can find me on social media at Rodgers Speaks or by my name, Mills Rodgers. You know, I'm on Instagram, Twitter. I don't do too much on Twitter. Facebook, LinkedIn. My website, like I mentioned earlier, is Success is a Process, Not an Event. Oh, I'm sorry, Success is a Process. The name of one of my books is Success is a Process, Not an Event. But the website is www.successisaprocess.net. And on there, you can find links to my books, and you'll find videos and things of that nature on there, pictures and everything. Just, you know, what topics I talk about. And so, yeah, that's probably the best way to you know, follow whatever I'm doing.
Perfect. Okay. Bada. One final question, then I'll go ahead and get out of your hair. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. This is a good one. Oh, what does resilience mean to you?
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, resilience just means, you know, you look, you're going to experience some disappointments. You're going to experience some losses. I like to say this in my talks. Champions don't win every game, but they still can become champions. They can still win championships. And so, yeah, we're going to have some losses along the way. You know, here's the thing. You don't want the majority of your days to be losses, right? You want the majority of your days to be wins, just like a championship team. All right, there's hardly any team, especially in professional sports, that goes undefeated. All right, they all going to lose a few games every season, you know, relatively speaking. But at the end of the season, there's going to be somebody that's going to be considered a champion, even though they lost a few games. All right, and so that's what resilience means to me. That, you know, you're going to take a loss from time to time, and, you know, you got to wake up the next day and be like, it's a new day, and I learned this from my loss, the day before that didn't go so well, and I got to keep fighting, because that's what it's all about. Got to keep fighting.
That's
You'll be
awesome.
all
You
right.
got to keep fighting.
Yeah, you're gonna be
That
all right.
is, you're all right. That is resilience in action. Mills, thank you so much for spending some time with us today.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Resilience in Action with Erin Brown. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate, review, and subscribe. And I want you to remember one thing: resilience in action will always lead to a greater human experience.